uh, JFreeChart Architecture. Here you can see class level architecture. JFreeChart is an open source framework for the programming language Java, which allows the creation of a wide variety of both interactive and non-interactive charts. Here you can see class level architecture. The basic class level architecture represents how various classes present in JFreeChart library interact with each other to yield various types of charts. The file represents the user input used for creating a dataset in the file. The database represents the source, having user input used for creating a dataset in the database. Create dataset represent the dataset which is being created and stored into the object. General dataset is a type of dataset which is used to create pie charts. Category dataset is a type of dataset which is widely used for bar charts, line chart, etc. Series dataset is a type of dataset which is used for storing series of data and construct line charts. Series collection data sets represent the various categories of series datasets that are added to the series collection dataset. This type of dataset is used for XY line charts. Create chart is the method which is executed to create final chart. Frame or image represent that the chart is displayed on a swing frame or an image is created. Here file and database is connected to create dataset. Create dataset is connected to general dataset, category dataset, and series dataset. Series dataset is connected to series collection datasets. Here the create dataset is connected to category dataset here, and category dataset is connected to create chart. Here this general dataset and series dataset and series collection dataset can also connected to create chart. Create chart is connected to frame or image. Here you can see application level architecture. Application level architecture shows the location of JFreeChart library in a Java application. Here the user data is received by the client program. Standard Java and JFreeChart APIs are used to generate the output in the form of either a frame which can be displayed directly inside the application or independently in the image formats such as JPEG or PNG. Here input is connected to client program. Java API is connected to client program. JFreeChart API is connected to client program. Client program is connected to output. Output is connected to application frame. And output is connected to PNG, JPEG. Here you can see the structure of the directories and files. The top level directory here, for example, in JFreeChart 1.0.19 contains the files and directories listed in listed here, and a directory containing an build.xml script. You can use this script to rebuild JFreeChart from the source code included in the distribution. Check style, directory containing several check style property files. This define the coding conventions used in JFreeChart source code. Experimental, a directory containing source files for classes that are not part of the standard JFreeChart API. GJDoc, a directory containing a script to generate the JFreeChart API documentation using the GJDoc utility. Lib, a directory containing the JFreeChart jar file. And other libraries used by JFreeChart. Source, a directory containing the source code for JFreeChart. SWT, a directory containing the source code for experimental SWT code. Please note that the API for these classes is subject to change. Test, a directory containing the source code for the JFreeChart unit tests. Changelog, details log of the changes made to JFreeChart. JFreeChart here 1.0.19 demo.jar, a runnable jar files containing demo applications. License lgpl.text, the free JFreeChart license JNU lgpl. News, NEWS, project news. Readme.txt, important information, read this first. This image shows the structure of the directories and files. If we reconsider here, the files, the top level here, now we are considering JFreeChart 1.0.9 contains the files and directories listed in the here. Readme.txt, project information, read this first, and news, project news. Changelog, a details log of changes made to JFreeChart. ANT, a directory containing the build.xml script. You can use this script to rebuild JFreeChart from the source code included in the distribution. Check style, a directory containing several check style property files. These define the coding conventions used in the JFreeChart source code. Experimental, a directory containing source files for classes that are not part of the standard JFreeChart API yet. We would appreciate feedback on this code. Please note that the API for these classes is subject to change. Lib, a directory containing the JFreeChart jar file and other libraries used by the JFreeChart. Source, a directory containing the source code for JFreeChart. SWT, a directory containing the source code for the experimental SWT code. Please note that the API for these classes is subject to change. Tests, a directory containing the source code for the JFreeChart unit tests. JFreeChart version and demo.jar, runnable jar file containing demo applications, license lgpl.txt, JFreeChart license GNU lgpl. You should spend some time familiarizing yourself with the files included in the download. In particular, you should always read the readme.txt file. Here you can see directories, ANT and files, ANT, checkstyle, doc files, experimental lib, and inside lib you can see JFreeChart 1.0.19.jar. Here JFreeChart 1.0.19 dash experimental.jar. Here Hamcrest core 1.3.jar. Here jcommon 1.0.223.jar. Here JFreeChart 1.0.19 SWT.jar. Here JFree SVG 2.0 jar. Here JUnit 4.11.jar. Here Awesome charts 1.4 eval no fx.jar. Here Awesome PDF 1.6 eval.jar. Here server.jar. Here SWT graphics 2d.jar. And here source SWT test, then changelog file. Here JFreeChart 1.0.19-demo.jar. Here license-lgpl.txt. Here news pom.xml, readme txt. Now we are focusing on file. The file represents the user input used for creating a dataset in the file. A computer file is a computer resource for recording data in a computer storage device, primarily identified by its file name. Just as words can be written to a paper, so can data be written to a computer file. Files can be shared with and transferred between computers and mobile devices via removable media, networks, or the internet. As an example, we can consider this code segment. Here read a simple data from a given text file from a given location. Here finds the digits in a given string. Here the class file, an abstract representation of file and directory path names. This is in module java.base and package java.io. You can see the input data here in the test.txt file. As an exception example, we can consider null pointer exception. If the path name argument is null in the constructor public file string path name in class file. Now we are focusing on database. The database represents the source having user input used for creating a dataset in the database. Database, also called electronic database, any collection of data or information that is specially organized for rapid search and retrieval by a computer. Databases are structured to facilitate the storage, retrieval, modification, and deletion of data in conjunction with various data processing operations. A database management system, DBMS, extracts information from the database in response to queries. As an example, we can consider this code segment here. This example retrieves data from MySQL table. Here JDBC category dataset is created here. The interface connection, a connection session with a specific database SQL statements are executed and results are returned within the context of a connection. The connection is interface connection is in the module java.sql and the package java.sql. The class JDBC category database here the declaration is not visible here. This dataset is declared somewhere else, and the class JDBC category dataset, a category dataset implementation over a database JDBC result set. The dataset is populated via a call to execute query string here with the string SQL query. SQL query must return at least 2 columns here. The first column will be the category name and the remaining columns are values for the chart. Each column represents a series. Subsequent call to execute query string will refresh dataset. And JDBC the class JDBC category dataset is in package org.jfree.data.jdbc. Here JDBC category database is dataset is created, and it takes a database connection as a parameter. Here the execute query populates the dataset by executing the supplied query against the existing database connection. As an example 2, we can consider this code segment. Here the interface connection, a connection session with specific database. SQL statements are executed and results are returned within the context of a connection. The interface connection is in module java.sql and package java.sql. The class JDBC Pi dataset, a Pi dataset that reads data from a database via JDBC. And JDBC Pi dataset is in org.jfree.data.jdbc package. Now we are considering sample data in datasets and JDBC. Here a pie chart will be created using this data, for example in a table called pie data 1. To see JDBC datasets in action, you need to create some sample data in a test database. Here is listed some sample data that will be used to create a pie chart, bar chart, and a time series chart. A pie chart will be created using this data in a table called pie data 1. Similarly, a bar chart will be created using this data in a table called a bar chart in this data, for example the table called category data 1. Finally, a time series chart will be generated using this data, for example in a table called xy data 1. You should set up a test database containing these tables. For example, ask your database administrator to help you if necessary. For example, you can create a database JFreeChart DB, but you can change the name if you want to. You can see category and value. Here category series 1, series 2, series 3, here X, and series 1, series 2, series 3. Now we are considering creating pie chart data. To create the table for create the table for the pie dataset. First, while logged in as the database administrator, You can create a test database called JFreeChart DB. Here create database JFreeChart DB. Next, you can create a user, for example, in JFreeChart. Create user JFreeChart with password, with some password. This username and password will be used to connect to the database via JDBC. So now to create the table for the pie data set, here you can see, and to populate here, so now we are considering the JDBC driver. You can download driver for PostgreSQL from here. To access the sample data via JDBC, you need to obtain JDBC driver for your database. For PostgreSQL, you can download the driver from here, from this web address, http://jdbc.postgresql.org. In order to use this driver, you need to ensure that the jar file contained in the driver is on the class path. Now we are considering JDBC pie chart demo in the demo application. The code for reading the data is in the read data method. The JDBC pie chart demo application will generate a pie chart using the data in the pie data one table. Providing that you have configured your database correctly. The code for reading the data is in the read data method. The important things to note in the code are the URL used to reference the test database include the name of the test server here, Nomad. You will need to modify this. A connection is made to the database using the username password combination. JFreeChart forward password. The query used to pull the data from the database is a standard select query, but you can use any SQL query as long as it returns the columns in the required format. Refer to the JDBC pie dataset class documentation for details. As an exception example, we can consider SQL exception. If a database access error occurs or the URL is null in method public static connection get connection string URL properties info in class driver manager. Now we are focusing on create dataset. The create dataset represents the dataset which is being created and stored into the object. Here as an example, we can consider interface dataset, the base interface for datasets. All datasets are required to support the dataset change event mechanism by allowing listeners to register and retrieve notification of any changes to the dataset. In addition, all datasets must belong to one and only one dataset group. The group object maintains a reader-writer lock which provides synchronized access to the datasets in multi-threaded code. The interface dataset is in package org.jfree.data.general. Here we are considering abstract dataset. Abstract dataset. The overview of abstract dataset in package org.jfreechart jfree.data.general, a useful base class for implementing the dataset interface. So extensions, the class abstract dataset package org.jfree.data.general, an abstract implementation of a dataset interface containing a mechanism for registering change listeners. This class provides the default implementation of the change listener mechanism, which allows the dataset to send a dataset change event to registered listeners every time the dataset is updated. Dataset change event, the overview of dataset change event, an event that is used to provide information about changes to datasets. Class dataset change event, the package in the package org.jfree.data.general, a change event that encapsulates information about a change to a dataset. In general, any change to a dataset will trigger a dataset change event, which then allows listener to react to the change. By default, when a dataset is added to a plot, the plot registers itself as a listener with the dataset and will receive a notification whenever the dataset is changed. Overview in dataset change listener, and interface through which dataset change event notifications are posted. The interface dataset change listener in package org.jfree.data.general, the interface that must be supported by classes that wish to receive notification of changes to a dataset. In general, any change, if a class needs to receive notification of changes to a dataset, then it should implement this interface and register itself with the dataset. Overview in dataset group. A dataset group provides a mechanism for grouping related datasets. Class dataset group in package org.jfree.data.general, a class that is used to group datasets currently not used for any specific purpose. At present, this is not used. Overview in dataset utilities, a collection of utility methods for working with datasets. the class dataset utilities in org.jfree.data.general. This is removed. A collection of useful static method relating to datasets. Overview of default keyed value dataset. A dataset that contains a single key value data item. Class default keyed value dataset in package org.jfree.data.general. A default implementation of keyed value dataset interface. This class implements the keyed value dataset interface. Overview of default value dataset. A dataset that contains a single possibly null value. Class default value dataset in package org.jfree.data.general. A dataset that stores a single value that is possibly null. This class provides the default implementation of the dataset interface. This class provides the default implementation of the value dataset interface and is used in JFreeChart by the meter plot and thermometer plot classes. Overview in keyed value dataset, a dataset that contains a single key value data item, where the key is the instance of a comparable and the value is an instance of number. Interface keyed value dataset in package org.jfree.data.general, a dataset containing a single value. Overview of value dataset. This interface specifies the API for a dataset representing a single value number object. Interface value dataset in package org.jfree.data.general. An interface for a dataset that returns a single value. A default implementation of this interface is provided by default value dataset class. Overview of wafer map dataset, a dataset that can be used with the wafer map plot class. The class wafer map dataset in package org.jfree.data.general, a class set, a dataset that can be used with the wafer map plot class. Now we are focusing on general dataset. The general dataset is a type of dataset which is used to create pie charts. As an example, we can consider pie dataset. Interface pie dataset, a general purpose dataset where values are associated with keys. As the name suggests, you can use this dataset to supply data for pie charts. Refer the pie plot class also. Interface pie dataset is in package org.jfree.data.general. As an example 2, we can consider this code segment here. The class default pie dataset, a default implementation of the pie dataset interface. This is in org.jfree.data.general package. Here construct a new dataset, initially empty. Here in method set value, sets the data value for a key and send a dataset change event to all registered listeners. Here the key, this is the key, and null not permitted, and this is the value. Now we are considering default key values dataset. Overview in default keyed values dataset, a dataset that implements the keyed values dataset interface. The class default keyed values dataset in package org.jfree.data.general, a default implementation of the keyed values dataset interface. This is an alias for default Pi dataset. Overview in default Pi dataset, a dataset that records 0, 1 or more values, each with an associated key. Class default Pi dataset k extend comparable k in package org.jfree.data.general, a default implementation of the Pi dataset interface. This class provides a default implementation of the Pi dataset interface and can, of course, be used in creation of Pi charts. Refer to the Pi plot class. Keyed values dataset. Interface keyed values dataset in package org.jfree.data.general. A dataset containing key value data items. A keyed values dataset is a collection of values where each value is associated with the key. A common use for this type of dataset is in the creation of pie charts. Overview in Pi dataset. A Pi dataset is a collection of values where each value is associated with the key. Interface Pi dataset type parameter k extend comparable type parameter k in package org.jfree.data.general. A general purpose dataset where values are associated with keys. As the name suggests, you can use this dataset to supply data for pie charts. Refer to the pie plot class. This type of dataset is most commonly used to create pie charts. As with all the dataset interfaces in JFreeChart, only data reading, not writing methods are defined. The default Pi dataset class provides the default implementation of this interface. Overview in JDBC Pi dataset, a Pi dataset that reads the data from the database via JDBC. Class JDBC Pi dataset in package org.jfree.data.jdbc. A query should be supplied that returns the data in two columns, first containing varchar data and the second containing numerical data. The data is cached in memory and can be refreshed at any time. Now we're considering Pi dataset handler. Overview in Pi dataset handler, a SAX handler for reading a Pi dataset from an XML file. Class Pi dataset handler in package org.jfree.data.xml, a SAX handler for reading a Pi dataset from an XML file. Here you can see the format supported by the handler is illustrated by the following example. The Pi dataset element can contain any number of item elements. A sample Pi dataset for JFreeChart. As an exception example, we can consider illegal argument exception. If the key is null in method public void set value comparable key number value in class default Pi dataset. As an error example, we can consider this error: java.lang.no class def found error. in :org /jfree/data /py dataset. Now we are focusing on category dataset. The interface for a dataset with one or more series and values associated with categories. The category dataset is a type of dataset which is widely used for bar chart, line chart, etc. Here the interface category dataset. The interface for a dataset with one or more series and values associated with categories. The categories are represented by comparable instance, with the category label being provided by the toString method. Interface category dataset is in package org.jfree.data.category. As an example 2, we can consider this code segment. Here the class default category dataset. A default implementation of the category dataset interface. The class default category is in package org.jfree.data.category. Here creates a new empty dataset. The method set value adds or update a value in the table and sends a dataset change event to all registered listeners. Here this is the value null permitted. This is row key, the row key null not permitted. Column key, the column key null not permitted. Now we are considering introduction in package org.jfree.data.category. This package contains interfaces and classes for datasets used primarily by JFreeChart's category plot class. Package org.jfree.data.category, a package containing the category dataset interface and related classes. Now we are considering overview of datasets in the dataset in line chart based on a category dataset. In line charts, the dataset as in the example, the default category dataset class is used. The class default category dataset in package org.jfree.data.category, a default implementation of the category dataset interface. The first step in generating the chart is, as always, to create a dataset. In the example, the default category dataset class is used. Note that you can use any implementation of category dataset interface as your dataset. The A line chart based on the category dataset simply connects each category and value data items using straight lines. Now we are considering overview in category dataset. A category dataset is a table of values that can be accessed using row and column keys. Interface category dataset package in package org.jfree.data.category. The interface for a dataset with one or more series and values associated with categories. This type of dataset is most commonly used to create bar charts. Now we are considering an overview in category to pie dataset. Utility class that represents one row or column of data from category dataset via the pie dataset interface. The class category to pie dataset in package doc.jfree.category data.category. A pie dataset implementation that obtain its data from one row or column of category dataset. Overview in default category dataset, a dataset that implements the category dataset interface, forming a two-dimensional table of values with keys for the row and columns headings. The default category dataset in packaged org.jfree.data.category, a default implementation of the category dataset interface. This column, a dataset that implements the category dataset interface, forming a two-dimensional table of values with keys for the row and the column headings. The column headings are the categories for the dataset, while the row headings are the series keys. The dataset is commonly used to create bar charts that can also be used for other charts types. Overview in default interval category dataset, default implementation of the interval category dataset interface. The class default interval category dataset in package org.jfree.data.category, a convenience class that provides the default implementation of the interval category dataset interface. You can use this dataset with category plot and an interval bar renderer. Overview in interval category dataset, an extension of the category dataset interface that adds methods for returning a start value and an end value for each item in the dataset. Interface interval category dataset in package org.jfree.data.category, a category dataset that defines a value range for each series or category combination. Overview in Gantt category dataset in package org.jfree.data.gantt. An extension of the interval category dataset interface that is intended for creating simple Gantt chart. Interface Gantt category dataset in package org.jfree.data.gantt. An extension of the interval category dataset interface that adds support for multiple sub-intervals. Overview in JDBC category dataset in package org.jfree.data.jdbc, a category dataset that reads data from a JDBC via from a database via JDBC. Class JDBC category dataset in package org.jfree.data.jdbc, a category dataset implementation over a database JDBC result set. The dataset is populated via a call to execute query string with string SQL query. This SQL query must return at least 2 columns. First column will be the category name and the remaining columns values. Each column represents a series. Subsequent calls to execute query string will refresh the dataset. A category dataset that reads data from a database via JDBC. The data is cached in memory and can be refreshed at any time. Overview in box and whisker category dataset in package org.jfree.data.statistics, an interface that extends the category dataset interface and returns the values required for a boxed and whisker chart. Interface boxed and whisker category dataset in package org.jfree.data.statistics, a category dataset that defines the new various medians, outliers, and average values for each item. The dataset represents a two-dimensional table where each cell in the table contains a complete set of statistics in one box and whisker item, a mean, median, quartile boundary values Q1 and Q3, plus information about outliers and fairouts. Overview in default box and whisker category dataset, a dataset that can be used to create box and whisker plot using a box and whisker renderer on a category plot. A class box and whisker category dataset in package org.jfree.data.statistics, a convenient class that provides the default implementation of the box and whisker category dataset interface. This class implements box and whisker category dataset interface. Overview in default multi-value category dataset, a dataset that represents two multidimensional table where each cell in the table can hold 0, 1 or many numerical values. Class default multi-value category dataset in package org.jfree.data.statistics, a category dataset that defines multiple values for each item. This class implements the multi-value category dataset interface. This class was first introduced in JFreeChart version 1.0.7. Overview in default statistical category dataset, a dataset that stores mean and stores mean and standard deviation values for each cell in a row dimensional table. Class default statistical category dataset in package org.jfree.data.statistics, a convenient class that provides the default implementation of the statistical category dataset interface. Keys instances of comparable are used to reference the rows and columns in the table. This class provides the default implementation of the statistical category dataset interface. Overview in statistical category dataset. A statistical category dataset is a table of data where each data item consists of a mean and a standard deviation calculated externally on the basis of some other data. Interface statistical category dataset in package org.jfree.data.statistics, a category dataset that defines a mean and standard deviation value for each item. This interface is an extension of the category dataset interface. Category dataset handler in package org.jfree.data.xml. The overview, a SAX handler that creates the category dataset by processing an element in an XML document. Class category dataset handler in package org.jfree.data.xml, a SAX handler for reading a category dataset from an XML file. The format supported by the handler is illustrated by the following example. The category dataset element can contain any number of series elements, and each series element can contain any number of item elements. A simple data for JFreeChart. Sample data for JFreeChart. Overview in category series handler, a SAC handler that reads a series sub-element within a category dataset XML file. Class category series handler in package org.jfree.data.xml, a handler for reading a series for a category dataset. The work is delegated to this class by the category dataset handler class. As an exception, we can consider unknown key exception. If either key is not defined in the dataset, in method public number get value comparable new key, row key comparable column key in class default category dataset. As an error example, we can consider this one occurred in the environment with JFreeChart 1.0.4 and JCommon 1.0.8. Create line chart string category dataset boolean in chart factory cannot be applied to string category dataset oriented and boolean. Now we are focusing on series dataset. The interface for a dataset consisting of one or many series of data. The series dataset is a type of dataset which is used for storing series of data and construct line charts. As an example, here we can consider series dataset. The interface series dataset. The interface for a dataset consisting of one or many series of data. This is in package org.jfree.data.general. As an example 2, we can consider this code segment. Here the class default XYZ dataset. The default implementation of XYZ dataset interface that stores data values in arrays of double primitives. Here the add series method adds a series or if a series with same key exists, if the series with same key already exists, replaces the data for that series, then sends a data set change event to all registered listeners. Here, this is the first parameter series key. The series key null not permitted. Second parameter is a data. It's a double two-dimensional array. The data must be an array with length 3. Containing 3 arrays of equal length. The first containing x values, the second containing y values, and the third containing z values. The default XYZ data set is in package org.jfree.data.xy. As the example 3, we can consider this code segment. The class histogram dataset, a dataset that can be used for creating histograms. This is in package org.jfree.data.statistics. The method public void add series comparable key double array values int bins. This add series method adds a series to the data set using the specified number of bins and sends a data set change event to all registered listeners. Here the series key not null permitted, the values not null permitted, and bins, the number of bins must be at least 1. The histogram dataset is in the package org.jfree.data.statistics. Abstract series dataset in package org.jfree.data.general, a useful base class for implementing the series dataset interface or extensions. Class abstract series dataset in package org.jfree.general, an abstract implementation of this series dataset interface containing a mechanism for registering change listeners. This class extend abstract dataset. Overview in combined dataset, a dataset that can combine other datasets. This is removed. This class is removed, and this was in class combined dataset in org.jfree.data.general. This class can combine instances of XY dataset, OHLC dataset, and interval XY dataset together, exposing the union of all the series under one dataset. Overview in series, a useful base class for implementing data series. Subclass includes time series and XY series. Class series in package.org.jfree.data.general. The base class representing a data series. Subclasses are left to implement the actual data structures. This class provides a mechanism for registering change listeners, object that will receive a message series change event every time the series is modified in some way. Overview in series change event, an event class that is passed to a series change listener to notify it concerning a change to a series. The class series change event in package org.jfree.data.general, an event with details of a change to a series. This is an important event for dataset classes that maintain a collection series object. The dataset needs to know when any of data series has changed, so that it can forward the dataset change event to its own listeners. Overview in series change listener, the interface through which the series change notification are posted. Interface series change listener, the package in package org.jfree.data.general, the methods for receiving notification of changes to a data series. Typically, a dataset will implement this interface to receive a notification of any changes to the individual series in a dataset, which normally be passed as a dataset change event. Overview in series dataset, a base interface that defines dataset containing 0 or 0, 1 or many data series. Interface series dataset in package org.jfree.data.general, the interface for a dataset consisting of one or many series of data. This interface is implemented by abstract series dataset class. Subseries dataset, a specialized dataset implementation written by Bill Kellerman this is to be documented, and this is now removed. The public class subseries dataset in package org.jfree.data.general. This class will create a dataset with one or more series from another series dataset. As an exception example, we can consider array index out of bound exception. If series is not within the specified range, in method public double get x value in series int item in class default xyz dataset. Considering as an example exception 2, we are considering overview in series exception. The general exception that can be thrown by series. The class series exception in package org.jfree.data.general, a general purpose exception class for data series. Now we are focusing on series collection dataset. The series collection dataset represents the various categories of series datasets that are added to series collection dataset. This type of dataset is used for XY line charts. As an example, we can consider this code segment. Here, class XY series collection. This class represent a collection of XY series objects that can be used as a dataset. This class is in package org.jfree.data.xy. The class XY series represent a sequence of 0 or more data items in X and Y forms. By default, items in the series will be sorted into ascending order by X value, and duplicate X values are permitted. Both the sorting and duplicate default can be changed with the constructor. Y values can be null to represent missing values. Here in the add method adds a data item to the series and sends a series change event to all registered values or all registered listeners. Here X the X value, and here Y the Y value. Here the add series adds a series to the collection and sends a dataset change event to all registered listeners. Here the parameters the series null not permitted. As an example too, we can consider this code segment. The class time series collection, a collection of time series objects this class implements the XY dataset interface as well as the extended interval XY dataset interface. This make it a convenient dataset for use with the XY plot class. This class is in package org.jfree.data.time. Here in time series represent a sequence of 0 or more data items in the form period and value, where period is some instance of a subclass of a regular time period. The time series will ensure that all data items have the same type of period, for example day, and here minute, and b that each period appears at the most one time in the series. Here adds a new data item to the series and sends a series change event to all registered listeners. Period here, the time period, null not permitted here, and the value is the value here. Here in add series, adds a series to the collection and sends a data set change event to the all registers listeners. Here series, the series null not permitted. Overview in task series collection in package org.jfree.data.gant. The task series collection contains one or more task series object and provides access to the task information via the Gantt category dataset interface. Class task series collection in package org.jfree.data.gant. A collection of task series object. This class provides one implementation of the Gantt category dataset interface. You can use this class as a dataset for a Gantt chart. Overview in dynamic time series collection in package org.jfree.data.time. This class is a specialized form of time series dataset that is intended to be faster than the normal general time series collection class. The class dynamic time series collection in package org.jfree.data.time dynamic dataset. You can use this dataset when you have one or more series containing time series data, all with the same regular data values, and when you need to drop all the data as a newer data is added. Overview in time period values collection. A collection of time period values object. This class implements XY database in XY dataset interface and furthermore the internal XY dataset interface. The class time period values collection in package org.jfree.data.time, a collection of time period values objects. This class provides a more flexible but less structured alternative for the time series collection class. This class extends abstract interval XY dataset. Overview in time series collection. A collection of time series object that can be used as the dataset for time series chart. This class implements XY dataset and interval XY dataset interface. Class time series in package org.jfree.data.time. A collection of time series object. This class implements the XY dataset interface as well as extended interval XY dataset interface. This makes it a convenient dataset for use with the XY plot class. Overview in OHLC series collection in package org.jfree.data.time.ohlc. An OHLC series collection contains 0, 1 or many OHLC series instances and represent this data via the OHLC dataset interface. Class OHLC series collection in package org.jfree.data.time.ohlc, a collection of OHLC series objects. In other words, this class is a dataset that can be used to create charts that require open, high, low, closed data. This kind of data is usually related to financial, marketing, trading. Overview in series matrix series collection in package org.jfree.data.xy. And xy is a data set that is constructed from a collection of matrix series instances. Class matrix series collection in package org.jfree.data.xy represent a collection of matrix series that can be used as a dataset. Overview in a vector series collection, a dataset that implements the vector XY dataset interface by storing data in the form of 0, 1 or many vector series objects. Class vector series collection in package org.jfree.data.xy, a collection of vector series objects. XY interval series collection overview, a dataset that implements the XY interval dataset interface. Class XY interval series collection in package org.jfree.data.xy, a collection of XY interval series objects. This class was first introduced in JFreeChart version 1.0.3. Overview in XY series collection, a collection of XY series objects. Class XY series collection in package org.jfree.data.xy represent a collection of XY series objects that can be used as a dataset. This class implements both the XY dataset and interval XY dataset interfaces, so can be used as a dataset for a wide range of charts. Overview in Y interval series collection, a dataset that implements the interval XY dataset interface with an interval for the Y values but not the X values. Class Y interval series collection in package org.jfree.data.xy, a collection of Y interval series objects. This class is first introduced in JFreeChart version 1.0.3. As an exception example, we can consider property vetor exception in method public void vetorable change property change event E in class time series collection. As an error example, we can consider this one. This dataset already contains a series with the key data at org.jfree.data.xy series collection at series xy series collection.java. Yeah. Now we are focusing on create chart. The create chart is the method which is executed to create final chart. A chart is a graphical representation for data visualization in which the data is represented by symbols such as bars in a bar chart, lines in a line chart, or slices in a pie chart. A chart can represent tabular numeric data functions or some kinds of quality structure and provides different info. As an example, we can consider class chart factory, a collection of utility methods for creating some standard charts with JFreeChart. This class is in org.jfree.chart package. As an example too, we can consider this code segment. Here the method public static JFreeChart create pie chart 3D string title pie dataset boolean legend, boolean tooltips, and boolean URLs. This creates a 3D pie chart using the specified dataset. The chart objects returns by this method uses pyplot 3D instance as the plot. Here the title, the chart title null permitted, dataset, the dataset for the chart null permitted. Here the legend, a flag specifying whether or not the legend is required. Tooltips, configure chart to generate tooltips. URLs, configure chart to generate URLs. The JFreeChart, the class JFreeChart here, a chart class implemented using the Java 2D APIs. The current version supports bar charts, line charts, pie charts, and XY plots, including time series data. Here the method getPlot returns the plot for the chart. The plot is a class responsible for coordinating the visual representation of data, including axis, if any. Here the class pyplot3D, a plot that uses a plot that displays data in the form of 3D pie chart. Using data from any class that implements the pie dataset. The method set start angle sets the starting angle and sends a plot change event to all registered listeners. The initial value is 90 degrees, which corresponds to 12 o'clock. The value 0 corresponds to 3 o'clock. This is the encoding used by Java Arc2D class. Here you can see the parameters angle, the angle in degrees. The set direction method sets the direction in which the pie sections are drawn and sends a plot change event to all registered listeners. Here the direction here null not permitted. Here the foreground alpha sets the alpha transparency for the plot and sends a plot change event to all registered listeners. Here you can see alpha in float value, the new alpha transparency here. As an example 3, we can consider this code segment. The method public static JFreeChart create bar chart string title string category x-axis label, string value axis label, category dataset, plot orientation here, boolean legend here, boolean tooltips, and boolean URLs. This method creates a bar chart. The chart object returned by this method uses a category plot instance as the plot with the category axis for the domain axis, a number axis as the range axis, and a bar renderer as the renderer. Here the title, the chart title, null permitted. Here the category axis label, the label for category axis, null permitted. Here the value axis label, the label for the value axis, null permitted. Dataset, the dataset for the chart, null permitted. Orientation, the plot orientation, horizontal or vertical, null not permitted. Legend, the flag is specifying whether or not the legend is required. Tooltips, configure chart to generate tooltips. URLs, configure chart to generate URLs. This method returns a bar chart. As an example 4, we can consider this code segment. Here the method public static JFreeChart create XY line chart, string title, string x-axis label, string y-axis label, XY dataset, plot orientation, boolean legend, boolean tooltips, and boolean URLs. This method create a line chart based on an XY dataset with default settings. Here title, the chart title, null permitted. Here x-axis label, a label for the x-axis, null permitted. Here y-axis label, a label for y-axis, null permitted. Dataset, the dataset for the chart, null permitted. Orientation, the plot orientation, horizontal or vertical, null not permitted. Legend, a flag is specifying whether or not legend is required. Tooltips, configure chart to generate tooltips. URLs, configure chart to generate URLs. This method returns the chart. Here the get XY plot, this returns the plot cast as XY plot. Not if the plot is not an instance of XY plot, then a class cast exception is thrown. Here the XY line and shape renderer, a renderer that connects data points with lines or draws shapes at each data points. This renderer is designed for use with the XY plot class. Here the set series paint returns the paint used to fill an item basically sets the paint used for a series and send a render a change event to all registers listeners. This is the series index 0 based, and this is the paint null permitted here, color.red. Here the set series stroke sets the stroke used for a series and sends a renderer change event to all registered listeners. Here this is the series index 0 based, and this is stroke here null permitted, and this is stroke. Here the set renderer sets the renderer for the primary dataset and send a change event to all registered listeners. If the renderer is set to null, no data will be displayed. Here you can see the renderer. Here set background paint, set the background color of the plot area and sends the plot change event to all registered listeners. Likewise, there are other methods: set range grid lines visible, set range grid line paint, set domain grid lines visible, and set domain grid line paint. Here the method get legend returns the legend for the chart if there is one. Note that the chart can have more than one legend. This means returns the first. So this method returns the first. Here in the set frame sets the frame or border, and you can see the chart title here. So here the chart factory dot create x5 line chart creates a new line chart. The parameters of the methods are here: chart title, x axis label, y axis label, data, plot orientation, the 3 flags indicating whether to show legend, tooltips, and URLs. We get a reference to the plot in order to customize it here. Here we set a stroke and color for the line of the chart. XY line and shape renderer is an object that connects data points with lines or draws shapes at each data point. Renderer is set with set renderer method. The set background paint sets the background color of the plot area. We show the grid lines and paint them in black color. And we remove the border around the legend, and we create the chart title with new font for a new font. Overview of package org.jfree.chart. This package contains the major classes and interfaces in the JFreeChart class library, including all the important JFreeChart classes. Package org.jfree.chart core classes, including JFreeChart and JFreeChart panel. Overview in chart color. This class defines some standard colors. Class chart color in package org.jfree.chart. Class to extend the number of colors available to the chart. This extends java.aw.color object and extend the number of final colors publicly accessible. Overview in chart factory. This class contains a range of convenient methods for creating standard types of charts. Class chart factory in package org.jfree.chart. A collection of utility methods for creating some standard charts with the JFreeChart. Hint: the use of these methods optional. Take a look at the source code for the method you are using to see if it might be better option to cut and paste the code into your application and then customize it to meet your requirements. Overview in chart mouse event. An event generated by the chart panel class to represent a mouse click or a mouse movement over a chart. Class chart mouse event in package org.jfree.chart. The mouse event for a chart that is displayed in the chart panel. These events are passed to listeners via chart mouse listener interface. Overview in chart mouse listener, an interface that defines the callback method for a chart mouse listener. The interface chart mouse listener in package org.jfree.chart. This the interface that must be implemented by classes that wish to receive chart mouse event notification from the chart panel. Any class that implements this interface can be registered with the chart panel and receive notification of the mouse events. This mechanism can be used to implement interactive charts in ensuing application. Information about the chart element and the current mouse location is contained in the chart mouse event object. This is a low-level mechanism but very flexible. Overview in chart panel, a panel that provides a convenient means to display free chart instance in chart swing-based user interface. Extend javax.swing.jpanel. Class chart panel in package org.jfree.chart. A swing GUI components for displaying JFreeChart object. Overview in chart rendering info. This class can be used to collect information about a chart as it is rendered, particularly information concerning the dimension of the various subcomponents of the chart. The class rendering info in package org.jfree.chart, a structure for storing rendering information from one call to the JFreeChart.draw method. Overview in chart utilities. This class contains utility methods for creating images from charts. Supported formats are PNG and JPG, generating HTML image maps. This class is removed now. Class chart utilities in org.jfree.chart. A collection of utility methods for JFreeChart includes method for converting charts to image formats PNG and JPG, plus creating some simple HTML image maps. Overview in clip path. This class is used by the contour plot class. This class is now removed from JFreeChart. Class clip path org.jfree.chart in this class would typically be used with the contour plot. It allows the user to define a general path curve in plot coordinates. The curve can then be used mask off or define regions within the contour plot. The data must be shorted. This class is deprecated as of the version 1.0.4, and now it's removed. Overview in drawable legend item. This to use to represent legend plus its physical drawing characteristic, position, label, location, etc. as it is being laid out on the chart. This is now removed. Class drawable legend item in org.jfree.chart. This class is now removed. This class contains a legend, single legend item along with the position details for drawing the item on a particular chart. This class is deprecated as of version 1.0.2 as it is no longer used by JFreeChart. Now it is removed. Overview in Effect 3D, an interface that should be implemented by the renderers that use the user 3D effect. This class is now removed. Interface Effect 3D in org.jfree.chart. This an interface that should be implemented by renderers that use 3D effect. This allows the access to mirror the same effect by querying the renderer. This allows the 3D access classes to synchronize their own 3D effect with that of the renderer and plot. Now this class is removed from JFreeChart. Overview in hash utilities, the utility class that assists the generation of hash codes. The class hash utilities in org.jfree.chart. This class is now removed. This class, some utility methods for calculating hash codes. This class is now removed. And this class was first introduced in JFreeChart 1.0.3 and now it's removed. Overview in JFreeChart. The JFreeChart class coordinates the entire process of drawing charts. The class JFreeChart in package org.jfree.chart. The chart class implemented using the Java 2D APIs. The current version supports bar chart, line chart, pie chart, and XY plots, including the time series data. The one method public void draw graphics 2D G2 and rectangle 2D area instructs the JFreeChart object to draw a chart into a specific area on some graphic device. The Java supports several graphic devices, including the screen printer, the printer, and buffered image via different implementation of abstract class java.aw.graphics2d. Thanks to this abstraction, JFreeChart can generate charts on any of these target devices as well as others implemented by third parties. For example, SVG generator implemented by Batic project. In broad terms, JFreeChart class set up a context for drawing a plot. A plot obtains data from a dataset and may delegate the drawing and individual data items in a category item renderer or an XY item renderer depending on the plot type. Not all plot types are renderers. The JFreeChart class can work with many different plot subclasses. Depending on the type of plot, the specific dataset will be required. Table here summarizes the combination that are currently available. Here the dataset and compatible plot types. Here box and Whisker category dataset, compatible plot types category plot with box and Whisker renderer. Box and Whisker data XY dataset, XY plot with XY box and Whisker renderer. And category dataset, category plot subclasses with various renderers or a spider web plot. Contour dataset, contour plot. Gantt category dataset, category plot with Gantt renderer, interval category dataset, category plot with an interval renderer, interval XY dataset, XY plot with an XY bar renderer, OHL C dataset, XY plot with high low renderer or candlestick renderer, pi dataset, pi plot, statistical category dataset, category plot with the class statistical bar renderer, value dataset, compass plot, meter plot and thermometer plot, wafer map dataset, wafer map plot, wind dataset, XY plot with the wind item renderer, XY dataset, XY plot with the various renderers, XY dataset, XY plot with the XY bubble renderer. Overview in legend item. The class that records the attributes of an item that should appear in a legend. See the legend title class. The class legend item in package org.jfree.chart. Temporary storage object for recording the properties of a legend item without any consideration for layout issues. Instances of this class are usually created by a renderer, which should set attributes to match the visual representation of the corresponding series. This table lists the attributes defined by the class. The attributes and the description. Label. The label usually the series name. Description, a description of the item not currently used. Shape value, a flag that indicates whether or not the shape is visible. Shape, the shape displayed on the legend item. Shape field, a flag that controls whether or not the shape is filled. Fill paint, fill the paint, and shape outline visible, flag that indicate whether or not the shape outline is visible. Outline paint, the outline paint, outline stroke, the outline is stroke. Line visible, the flag that indicate whether or not the line is visible. Line stroke, the line stroke. The line paint, the line paint. Overview in the legend item collection. A collection of legend items typically returned by the get legend items method in the plot classes. Class legend item collection in package org.jfree.chart, the collection of legend items. The overview in legend item source, the interface for obtaining a collection of legend items. Interface legend item source in package org.jfree.chart, the source of legend items. The legend item will remain the list of often just one from it obtains legend items. This interface implemented or extended by plot to work for all plot types, category item renderer, XY item renderer. The legend title will use one or more of these sources to obtain legend item for displaying on a chart. This provides an opportunity to legend to display just a subset of the items from a chart if required. Overview in legend rendering order, a class that defines tokens that control the order of the items in the legend. The class legend rendering order in package org.jfree.chart represent the order of rendering for legend items. Overview in polar chart panel, an extension of the chart panel class with the pop-up menu that applies to polar charts. The class polar chart panel in package org.jfree.chart. Polar chart panel is a top-level object used for the polar chart polar plot. Since this class has a JPanel in the instance hierarchy, one uses this class to integrate the polar plot into their application. Now we are considering a simple, here you can see a simple pie chart in sample charts. This figure shows a simple pie chart. JFreeChart can create pie chart using any data that confirms the pie dataset interface. This figure shows a simple pie chart. Now we are considering downloading and installing JFreeChart. The JCommon runtime jar file is included in the JFreeChart download, but if you require the source code recommended, then you should download the JCommon from here. The JCommon is a Java class library that is used by the JFreeChart, Pentaho reporting, and a few other projects. The library contains miscellaneous classes that support configuration and dependency management code, a general logging framework, text utilities, user interface classes for displaying information about applications, custom layout managers, date chooser panel, serialization utilities. JCommon is licensed under terms of the JNU Lesser General Public License, LGPL version 2.1 or later. You can download the latest version of the JFreeChart from http://www.jfreechart.org/jfreechart/download. There are two versions of JFreeChart download files, jfreechart-1.0.9.tar.gz, JFreeChart for Linux and Unix, JFreechart 1.0.9.zip, JFreeChart for Windows. The two files contain same source code. The main difference is that all the text files in the zip download have been recorded to have both carry H return and line feed characters at the end of each line. And if you want, the JFreeChart uses common class library, currently version 1.0.12. The JCommon runtime jar file is included in the JFreeChart download. If you require the source code recommended, then you should also use the JCommon from here. Now we are considering creating a pie chart in creating your first chart in using JFreeChart. We will use the chart factory class as follows here. The package, the class JFreeChart in package jfree.chart, a chart class implemented using the Java 2D APIs. The current version supports bar chart, line chart, pie chart, and XY plots, including time series data. This is one of the steps of and in step 2, how we present the data set created in the we need to create a JFreeChart object that can do a chart using the data from our pie data set. We will use the chart factory class as follows here. Notice how we pass the reference to the data set to the factory method. JFreeChart keeps reference to this data set so that it can obtain the data later on when it is drawing the chart. The chart that we have created uses default default settings for most attributes. These are many ways to there are many ways to customize the appearance of chart created with JFreeChart, but in this example we will just accept the default. Here the create chart. Legend true, tooltips true, and URLs false. Now we are considering section colors in pie charts. For example, here the pie plot here, the class pie plot template, type parameter k, extend comparable type parameter k, a plot that displays the data item in the form of a pie chart using data from any class that implements the pie dataset interface. For example, shown here is generated by pie chart demo to Java program in the documentation, including the Java JFreeChart demo collection. The method set section public void set section paint comparable key and paint sets the paint associated with the specified key and send the plot change event to all registered listeners. The default fill color of the pie sections are allocated automatically inside the lookup section paint comparable boolean method of the pie plot class. The first time a plot is rendered, if you don't like the default colors, you can set them yourself using the set section paint comparable and paint method. For example, here this a demo that uses colors included in the JFreeChart demo collection. In addition to the pre-series section color attributes, there is also a base or default setting. For more information, refer the documentation for the pie plot class. Here you can see now we are considering creating a bar chart in bar charts. Taking a shortcut, we use the chart factory class to create a JFreeChart instance. The method public static JFreeChart create bar chart string title, string category axis label, string value axis label, string category dataset, category dataset, plot orientation, and boolean legend, boolean tooltips, and boolean URLs. Create a bar chart. The chart object returned by this method uses a category plot instance as the plot with the category axis for the domain axis and num axis as the range axis and the bar renderer as the renderer. To create a free chart, JFreeChart instance that do a bar chart for this example dataset here. Taking a shortcut, we use the chart factory class to create JFreeChart instance. Most of the arguments of the create bar chart method are obvious, but a few of them demand further explanation. Plot orientation can either be horizontal or vertical. For bar charts, this corresponds to the way the bars are drawn horizontally or vertically. The tooltips flag, whether or not the tooltip generator is added to the chart. In this example here, we have set this flag to true so that we will see the tooltips when we display the chart in a swing application. URLs flag is only relevant when creating a drill down reports using HTML image map, so we can set it to false here. After we have completed this first bar chart example, we can see this here. Chart title, domain axis label, range axis label, data, orientation, include legend, tooltips, URLs. Constructing the chart in line chart based on a category dataset in line chart. Here is the code. The method public static JFreeChart create line chart string title, string category axis label, string value axis label, string dataset, plot orientation, boolean legend, boolean tooltips, boolean URLs. Creates a line chart with the default settings. The chart object returned by this method uses category plot instance as the plot with the category axis for the domain axis and a number axis as the range axis and a line and shape renderer as the renderer. To create a line chart, method in the chart factory class provides the convenient way to create the chart. Here is the code. This method constructs the JFreeChart object with the title legend, with title and no legend, and plot with the appropriate axis, renderer and tooltips generator. The dataset in the one is the one created before. Already created one. Create chart. Here chart title, domain axis label, range axis label, data, plot orientation, include region is false and tooltips and URLs false. Now we are considering constructing the chart in time series chart. In time series charts, the create time series chart method in the chart factory class provides the convenient way to create the chart. The method public static JFreeChart create time series chart, string title, string time axis label, string value axis label, xy dataset, boolean legend, boolean tooltips, boolean URLs, creates and returns a time series chart. A time series chart is an xy plot with a date with the date axis for the axis x-axis and the number axis for the y-axis. The default renderer is an XY line and shape renderer. The create time series chart method in the chart factory class provides the convenient way to create a chart. This method constructs a JFreeChart object with the title, legend, and a plot with an appropriate axis and renderer. The dataset is already created. Title, x-axis label, y-axis label, data, create legend, generate tooltips, generate URLs. Now we are considering chart title in chart attributes in customizing charts. The title is an instance of text title. You can obtain the reference to the title using getTitle method. The class text title in package org.jfree.chart.title, the chart title that displays a text string with automatic wrapping as required. A chart has one title that can appear at the top, bottom, left or right of the chart. You can also add subtitles. The title is an instance of text title. You can obtain a reference to the title using getTitle method. To modify the title without changing the font or position, here you can use set title here. The placement of the title at the top, bottom or left or right of the chart is controlled by the property of the title itself. To move the title to the bottom of the chart here, now we are considering updating the data set in a demo application in dynamic charts. In the demo, in dynamic charts, updating the in the demo, the data set is updated by adding data to the two time series from separate threads managed by the following timer. Note that the JFreeChart does not use the thread synchronization. Between the chart drawing code and the data set update code. So this approach is a little unsafe. Another point to note that at one point while investigating reports of a memory leak in JFreeChart, there's this demo is running on a test machine for about 6 days. As the chart updates, you can see the effect of the garbage collector. Over the 6-day period, the total memory used remained constant while the free memory decreased as the JFreeChart discarded temporary object garbage and increased at the point where the garbage collector did its work. Here the add total observation, they adds the observation to the total memory time series. Add free observation is the add then observation to the free memory time series. Here these are custom made methods. Now we are considering pie charts in generating tooltips in tooltips. The PyPlot class generates the tooltips using the pie tooltips generator interface. The interface pie tooltip generator in package org.jfree.chart.labels in the labels. A tooltip generator that is used by the PyPlot class. The PyPlot class generates tooltips using PyTooltips generator interface. The standard implementation is standard PyTool tip generator is provided, and you are free to create your own implementation. To set the tooltip generator, use the following method in the PyPlot class. The method is public void set tooltip generator, PyTooltip generator. Now we are considering assigning a label generator. In displaying item labels, to assign a generator to a category item renderer, use the following code. The class standard category item label generator in package org.jfree.chart.labels, a standard label generator that can be used with the category item renderer. Item labels are created by a label generator that is assigned to a renderer. The same mechanism is also used for tooltips. To assign a generator to a category item renderer, use the following code. Similarly, to assign a generator to an XY item renderer, use the following code. You can customize the behavior of the standard generator via settings that you can apply in the constructor, or you can create your own generator. Now we are considering adding an additional axis in an example in multiple axis and datasets. To add an additional axis to a plot, you can use the set range axis method. The method public void set range axis index and value axis class in class xyplot in package org.jfree.chart.plot sets an range axis and send the plot change event to all registered listeners. To add an additional axis to the plot, you can use set range axis method. The set range axis method is used to add the axis to the plot. Note that an index of 1 has been used. You can add as many additional axes as you require by incrementing the index each time you add a new axis. The set range axis location method allows you to specify where the axis will appear on the chart using axis location class. You can have the axis on the same side as the primary axis, so on the opposite side. The choice is yours. An example, bottom or right, as is specified, this which means for a range axis on the right if the plot has a vertical orientation. Or the bottom if the plot has a horizontal orientation. At this point, no additional data set has been added to the chart, so if you to display the chart, you would see additional axis, but it would have no data plotted against. But here the completed example here. Now we are considering constructing a chart in combined domain category plot in combined charts. The key step is the creation of a combined domain category plot instance to which subplots are added. The combined domain category plot, the class combined domain category plot in package org.jfree.chart.plot, a combined category plot where the domain axis is shared. The demo application, for example, the combined category plot demo 1.java available for download with JFreeChart developer guide, provide an example of how to create this type of chart. The key step is the creation of a combined domain category plot instance to which the subplots are added. Category axis, notice how these subplots has been added with the weights of 2, the second argument of the add method, while the subplot 2 has been added with the weight of 1. The control, this controls the amount of space allocated to each plot. The subplots are regular category plot instances. That have had their domain axis set to null. For example, in the demo application, the following code is being used there. It includes some customization of subplots. Now we are considering Java server pages in miscellaneous. The developers that are interested in using JFreeChart with JSP will want to check out the Seawolf project. Seawolf can be used inside a servlet or JSP based web application to embed complex graphical chart in all kinds, for example line, pie, bar, chart, plots, etc. into a web page. Therefore it provides a full feature stack library to define all projects of the chart, strokes, legend, etc. Thus the JSP which embeds the chart is not polluted with any Java code. Everything is described in XML conform tags. Developers that are interested in using JFreeChart with JSP will want to check out the Seawolf project. So this description is from their own website. In their own site, this is what they are telling about Seawolf. Now we are considering chart color in package org.jfreechart.chart. The overview. This class defines some standard colors. The package org.jfree.chart core classes including JFreeChart and chart panel. Class chart color. Class to extend the number of colors available to the charts. This extend the java.awt.color object and extend the number of final colors publicly accessible. Category point annotation in package org.jfree.chart.annotations. An annotation for a category plot that displays a text item and an arrow pointing towards a point on a chart defined by the category value pair. Package org.jfree.chart.annotations, a framework for adding annotations to charts. Class category point annotation, an arrow and label that can be placed on a category point. The arrow is drawn at a user definable angle so that it points towards the category value location for the annotation. This class implements the category annotation interface and was first introduced in JFreeChart 1.0.3. Overview in axis in package org.jfree.chart.axis, an abstract base class representing an axis. The package org.jfree.chart.axis axis classes and interfaces. Class axis, the base class for all accesses in JFreeChart. Subclasses are divided into those that display the values, value axis, and those that display categories, category axis. Some subclasses of plot, including category plot and XY plot, will use the axis to display data. Overview in abstract block in package org.jfree.chart.block. A base class for implementing a block which is used as a layout unit in JFreeChart, particularly for a legend title class. The package org.jfree.chart.block blocks and layout classes used extensively by the legend title class. Class abstract block, a convenience class for creating new classes that implement the block interface. Subclasses include block container, block color block, empty block, label block, legend graphics, and title. Overview in chart editor in package org.jfree.chart.editor, an instance that defines the API that needs to be supported by a chart editor. Package org.jfree.chart.editor provides a simple but so far incomplete framework for editing chart properties. Interface chart editor. A chart editor is typically a J component containing user interface for modifying the properties of a chart. A chart editor should be a subclass of J component. Overview in encoder util in package org.jfree.chart.encoders, a utility class containing a statics method for encoding images in several formats PNG and JPG are supported in most cases. Package org.jfree.chart.encoders, classes related to the encoding of charts to different image formats. Class encoder util, a collection of utility methods for encoding images and returning them as a byte array or writing them directly to an output stream. The method in this class are called by chart utilities class and make use of encoders pre-configured in the image encoder factory class. Overview in category item entity in package org.jfree.chart.entity. This class is used to convey information about an item within a category plot. Package org.jfree.chart.entity, classes representing components of or entities in a chart. Class category item entity, a chart entity that represent one item within a category plot. The information captured includes the data set containing the item, the series and category identifying the item, area occupied by the item at the time the chart was rendered, and the tooltip and URL text, if any, generated for this item. Overview in axis change event in package org.jfree.chart.event, an event that can be sent to an axis change listener to provide information about a change to an axis. Package org.jfree.chart.event, event classes and listener interfaces used to provide the change notification mechanism so that charts are automatically redrawn whenever changes are made to any chart component. Class axis change event, a change event that encapsulates information about a change to an axis. Overview in dynamic drive tooltip tag fragment generator in package org.jfree.chart.imagemap, a tooltip fragment generator that generates tooltips that are designed to work with a dynamic dynamic drive DHTML tip message library, http www.dynamicdrive.com. This class implements the tooltip tag fragment generator interface. Package org.jfree.chart.imagemap, classes including ImageMap utils for creating HTML image maps. Class dynamic drive tooltip tag fragment generator generates tooltips using the dynamic drive DHTML tip message library. Overview in abstract category item label generator in package org.jfree.chart.labels, an abstract base class for creating item labels for an category item renderer. Package org.jfree.chart.labels generators and other classes used for display of item labels and tooltips. Class abstract category item label generator, a base class that can be used to create a label or tooltip generator that can be assigned to a category item renderer. Known subclasses include the standard category tooltip generator, standard category item label generator. The generator uses the Java message format class to construct labels by substituting any or all of the object listed listed. Overview in arrow needle in package org.jfree.chart.needle, a class that draws an arrow needle for the compass plot class. Package org.jfree.chart.needle, a range of objects that can be used to represent the needle on a compass plot. Class arrow needle, a needle in the shape of an arrow. Overview in category marker in package org.jfree.chart.plot. A marker that can be used to highlight category in a category plot. The package org.jfree.chart.plot plot classes and related interfaces. The class category marker. The a marker for the for a category. The marker can be drawn as a line, as in this figure, or as a rectangle. Markers are added to the plot using the add domain marker methods in the category plot class. Here you can see category marker drawn as a line. Overview in dial plot in package org.jfree.chart.plot.dial. A plot that displays value from value dataset in a dial format. The package org.jfree.chart.plot.dial. Classes for creating dial plots. Class dial plot. A dial plot composed of user definable layers. The example shown here is generated by the dial demo2.java program included in the JFreeChart demo collection. The main class in this package is the dial plot class. Overview in abstract renderer in package org.jfree.chart.renderer, an abstract class that provides support for the features common to all renderer implementations. The package org.jfree.chart.renderer, the core support for the plugin renderers used by the category plot and XY plot classes. Class abstract renderer, the base class providing common services for renderers. Most methods that update attributes of the renderer will fire the renderer change event, which normally means that the plot that owns the renderer will receive notification that the renderer has been changed. The plot will in turn notify the chart. The abstract class that provides support for the features common to all renderer implementations. Colors, line styles and shapes for each series. Paint, fill paint, outline paint, stroke, outline stroke, shape. Series visibility, series in a legend visibility. Item labels, item label visible, item label font, item label paint, positive item label positions, negative item label positions, chart entity generation. This base class is extended by abstract category item reader and abstract XY item reader. Overview in area renderer in package org.jfree.chart.renderer.category, a renderer that represents the items in a category dataset using a polygon that fills the area between axis and the data points. An example shown in this figure. The package org.jfree.chart.renderer.category, plugin renderers for the category plot classes. Class area renderer, the category item renderer that draws area charts. You can use this renderer with the category plot class. The example shown here is generated by the area chart demo1. Java program included in the JFreeChart demo collection. This renderer is designed for use with category plot class. This is an area chart here. This is actually the area demo 1 here. And an area chart demonstration here. We use this subtitle as an example of what happens when you get a really long title or subtitle. Overview in candlestick renderer in package org.jfree.chart.renderer.xy. A candlestick renderer draws each item from an OHLC dataset as shown as a box with lines extending from the top and bottom. The package jfreechart.renderer.xy plugin renderers for the xy plot classes. Here's the class candlestick renderer. A renderer that draws the candlesticks on an xy plot requires a OHLC dataset. An example shown here is generated by the candlestick demo chart demo 1.java program included in the JFreeChart demo collection. Candlestick charts are typically used to display financial data. The box represents an open and closing prices, while the lines indicates that the high and low prices for a trading period, often a day, often one day. The renderer is designed for use with XY plot class. This is a sample chart here. Overview in chart deleter in package org.jfree.chart.servlet, a utility class that maintains a list of temporary files, chart images created by the servlet utilities class, and deletes them at the expiry of an HTTP session. Package org.jfree.chart.servlet, classes for providing useful servlet and JSP functionality. Class chart deleter used for deleting charts from the temporary directory when the user's session expired. Overview in legend title in package org.jfree.chart.title. A legend displays a label for the series in a chart, usually along with a small graphic item that identify the series by color or style. The package org.jfree.chart.title, classes used to display chart titles and subtitles. The class legend title, the chart title that displays a legend for the data in the chart. For example, this figure shows the chart with two legends, one on the left showing the columns for series S1, S2 and S3, and the other on the right showing the color series S4. Overview in category URL generator in package org.jfree.chart.utils. A category URL generator is used to generate a URL for each data item in a category plot. The package org.jfree.chart.urls, classes for adding URLs to charts for HTML image map generation. Interface category URL generator, a URL generator for items in a category dataset. The generator is associated with the plots renderer, an instance of category item renderer, and the URLs are used when you create HTML image map for chart image. Overview in relative date format in package org.jfree.chart.util, a custom date formatter that shows elapsed time in hours, minutes and seconds relative to some predefined point in time. The package org.jfree.chart.util utility classes used by JFreeChart. The class relative date format, a formatter that formats dates to show the elapsed time relative to some base date. You can use this formatter to format the labels on an axis that shows elapsed time. For example, relative date format demo1.java. This class was first introduced in JFreeChart 1.0.3. Overview in normal distribution function 2D in package org.jfree.data.function. A function that returns a values for a normal distribution. See this figure here. The package org.jfree.data.function, representation for simple functions. The class normal distribution function 2D, a normal distribution function. Here the chart using the samples from normal distribution function 2D. Overview in date range in package org.jfree.data.time, an extension of the range class that is used to represent the date or time range. The package org.jfree.data.time, interfaces and classes for time related data. Class date range, a range specified in terms of two java.util.date objects. Instances of this class are immutable. In JFreeChart, the primary use for this class is for specifying the range of values for display on a data axis. Overview in rectangle anchor in JCommon. This class defines an enumeration of 9 common anchor points within a rectangle. The package org.jfree.chart.ui utility classes that relate to user interface and items. Enum rectangle anchor used to indicate an anchor point for a rectangle. Here the rectangle, you can see the rectangle anchor points. As an example, we can consider this one for exception example. JFreeChart draw method throw null point exception. Here exception in thread main java.land.null point exception at org.freehep.graphics io.emf.emfg emf graphics 2d write pane at org.freehep.graphics io.emf.emf graphics 2d write stroke org.freehep.graphics io.abstract vector graphics io.set stroke at org.jfree.chart.plot.draw outline etc. As another example, we can consider this one method create chart class org.jfreeChart factory cannot apply to given types. Required java.lang.string java.lang.lang string java.lang string org.free data.category dataset etc. here. Now we are focusing on image frame image. The frame image represent that the chart is displayed on a swing frame or an image is created. A frame is a top level window with a title and a border. An image, from Latin imago, is an artifact that depicts visual perception, such as a photograph or other two-dimensional picture that resembles a subject, usually a physical object, and thus provide a depiction of it. In the context of signal processing, an image is a distributed amplitude of a color. A pictorial script is a writing system that employs images as symbols for various semantic entities rather than the abstract signs used by alphabets. You can see here the frame. You can see the title and the border here. This is overlaid bar chart here, and this is the frame title and border. For an image, you can see this one Lasser's figures implemented with JFreeChart. As an example, we can consider this code segment. Here you can see the chart frame here, a frame for displaying a chart. Here the construct a frame for a chart. This is a title and this is the chart. Here in the pack causes this window to be sized to fit the preferred size and layouts of its subcomponent. If the window and or its owner are not yet displayable, both are made displayable before calculating the preferred size. The window will be validated after preferred size is calculated. Here the shows or hide this window depending on the value of the parameter. Here the if it's true, make the window visible, otherwise hide the window. This chart frame class is in org.jfree.chart package. As an example too, we can consider this code segment here, chart utilities, the class chart utilities, a collection of utility methods for JFreeChart, includes method for converting charts to image formats, PNG or JPEG, plus creating simple HTML image maps. The method public static void save chart as PNG file JFreeChart int width and int height. This saves a chart to the specified file in the PNG format. This is this chart utilities class is in the package org.jfree.chart. Here you can see the file null not permitted, chart, the chart null not permitted, width, image width and image height. Here the public static void save chart as JPEG file and JFreeChart int width and int height. Saves a chart to a file in JPEG format. Here this is the file null not permitted and chart null not permitted, the image width and the image height. Now we are considering the application in exporting charts to Acrobat PDF. This method performs most of the work that will be required by the save chart as PDF method, but it writes data to an output stream rather than a file. The method public void draw graphics 2D or G2 rectangle 2D area in class JFreeChart in package org.jfree.chart draws the chart on a Java 2D graphics device such as the screen or a printer. The first thing the sample application need to do is to create a chart. So you can use the chart factory.create time series chart method, and this is nothing special. And next you can create a copy of the chart in the PDF file. Then you can save a copy of the chart in a PDF file. This is chart here. There are a couple of things not here. That first I have created a hard-coded file name used for the PDF file here in this way. I have done this to we can do these things to keep simple sample code short. In a real application, you would provide some other means for the user to specify the file name, perhaps by presenting the file chooser dialog. Second, save chart as PDF method hasn't been implemented yet. To create that method, you will write another more general method, write chart as PDF. This method performs the most of the work that will be required by the save chart as PDF method, but it writes data to an output stream rather than a file. Inside this method, you will see some code that set up and open iText document. Obtains a graphics 2D instance from the document, draws the chart using graphics 2D graphics 2D object and closes the document. You will also notice that one of the parameters for this method is font mapper object. The font mapper interface maps the Java font object to the base font using objects, base font object used by iText. Default font mapper class is predefined with the default mapping for the Java logical fonts. If you only if you use only these fonts, then it is enough to create a default font mapper using default constructor. If you want to use the other font, for example a font that supports a particular character set, then you need to do more work. In the implementation, the write chart as PDF method, here it is chosen to create a PDF document with a custom page size matching the requested size of the chart. You can easily adapt the code to use the different page size, alter the size and the position of the chart, even draw multiple charts inside the PDF document. Now I have a method to send PDF data to the output stream. Here it is straightforward to implement the save chart as method. Simply create a file output stream and pass it onto the write chart write chart as PDF method. Write the chart to the PDF file here. Now we are considering the application in a sample application in exporting charts to SVG format. Create a project in your favorite Java development environment. Add the libraries used in the libraries required, and type the following program, or easier grab a copy of the source from the JFreeChart demo collection. The method public void draw graphics 2D G2 and rectangle 2D area draws the chart on the Java 2D graphics device such as screen or a printer. Create a project. Running this program creates a test.svg in SVG format. Here the view in the SVG Batix includes the view application squiggle, which you can use this to open and view the SVG file. The Batix download includes instruction for running the viewer. Effectively, all you require is java-jar batic-squiggle.jar. The following screenshot shows the pie chart that we created and display using a browser application. A transformation rotation has been applied to the chart within the browser. If you play about with the viewer, zooming in and out and applying various transformations to the chart, you will begin to appreciate the power of SVG format. Here the demonstration shows the export the charts to SVG format. Here starting point for the demo and paramarks ignored. Create chart here. Create chart. So here create dataset and here create chart. Following code based on the example in the Batix documentation. Get the DOM implementation. Create instance of org.w3c.domain.dom.document. Create instance of SVG generator. Set the position to avoid the null pointer exception in Batix. Ask the chart to render into the SVG graphics 2D implementation. Finally, I stream out the SVG to a file using UTF-8 character to byte encoding. Now we are considering source code in sample application in applets. There is a very little applet specific code here. We just extend the JApplet. The class chart the sample applet uses JFreeChart can be seen in the following. Here the URL http://www.object-refinery.com/JFreeChart/applet.html. The two aspects of the same applet is interesting. The source code that is used to create the applet and HTML file that is used to invoke the applet. The HTML used to invoke the applet is important since it needs a reference to the necessary jar files. The HTML applet tag is used here. Notice that three jar files are referenced. The first contains the applet class source code in the applet class source code here, while the remaining two jar files are standard JFreeChart and JCommons class libraries. The version numbers reflect the age of the demo rather than the current release. You can place the applet tag anywhere in your HTML file that you might place some other elements such as an image. The sample applet is created using the following source code, which is included in the support demos package. There is very little applet specific code here. We just extend JApplet. A sample applet demo. The time series for total memory used, private time series total here. The time series for total memory used, the time series for free memory. Create new instance. Create two series that automatically discard data more than 30 seconds old. Add the observation to the total memory time series, param the total memory used. Add observation to the free memory time series, param the free memory used. The data generator. the constructor. Add new free total memory reading to the dataset. Add param event, action event. Here you can see an applet using JFreeChart. Now we are considering a simple servlet in servlets. Here is the code for basic servlet. The class chart utilities, this chart utilities is removed from the in current versions. This was in the org.jfreechart package. The static public static void write chart as png method output stream out JFreeChart chart int width and int height. The chart is created. The content type for the response is set to image or PNG. This tells the client what type of data is receiving. The PNG image of the chart is written to the output stream. The output stream is closed. The basic servlet that return PNG image file generated by the JFreeChart. This class is described in the JFreeChart developer guide in the servlet chapter. Creates a new demo here. Nothing required here. The process the get request, the at param request at param request the request, and at param response the response. Throws a servlet exception if there is a servlet related problem. Throws IO exception if there's an IO problem. Output stream sorry. Chart overview in chart frame in package org.jfree.chart, a frame containing a chart within a chart panel. Class chart frame in package org.jfree.chart, a frame for displaying a chart. Overview in block frame in package org.jfree.chart.block, an interface that defines an API for border that can be assigned to any abstract block via the get classes setFrame method. Interface block frame in package org.jfree.chart.block. A block frame is a type of border that can be drawn around the outside of any abstract block. Classes that implement this interface should implement public, clonable, or be immutable. This interface is implemented by block border and line border. As an exception example, in the environment of with Java 1.4 and JFreeChart 0.9.11, exception in thread main java.aw.headless exception at java.aw.graphics environment.check headless at java.aw.window init at java.aw.frame init at java.x.swing.jframe init at org.jfree.ui.application frame, etc. As an exception, another exception example, we can consider IO exception. May occur in method public static void save as JPEG file float quality JFreeChart chart int width int height in class chart utilities. As an error example, we can consider IO error writing PNG file at and etc. This is end of my presentation. Thank you very much for watching it.